think about platform not as a tool, but rather as a model for how applications are delivered for your particular organization. And consider actually building a team whose job it is to understand how developers want to do that process and then make it easier for them by automating all the things. Hi, folks. Robert Starmer here, bringing you another episode of 5 Minutes of Cloud, my thought of the day, as it were. Um, Lately, I've seen a lot of people struggling with selection of tools, model for developers, the entire flow of development and getting something from an initial idea into production. And I see this repeated over and over and over again. Why is it that we can't automate all of the processes, get from a developer's idea directly to production? And we're seeing this growth in no code and low code types of platforms to also try to help accelerate the same process. Lately, there's been more in the AI space as well, where people are saying, "Hey, let's do this chat style interaction with systems. Let's make everything that model." Well, as we all know, nothing solves all the problems. But the one technology that I have seen that has, I think, really sort of changed the game in many ways is this idea of a platform. Now, 10 years ago, when we started this business, we realized that the platform at the time was really sort of an extension of the first levels of virtualization. So Amazon had started in with the Amazon Web Services idea, basically this ability to have virtualized machines available to you, virtualized storage available, and have an API that enabled those interfaces. That led to DevOps, that led to all kinds of new ways of thinking about how an application is developed and delivered. Today, we're seeing this need even more so than ever to really customize the ideas of applications. I have this concept, I want to get it out there, I want to get the community and the world to start using it, especially within enterprise environments. I think this becomes even more so. And there are many cases where a no code platform is the perfect solution for that. Basically simplifying access to data that lives in spreadsheets, the simple database model that most businesses need. This is, I think, where low code or no code shines. When you start looking at implementing tools for your customers to use or for your peers in a business to business sort of a situation to start using, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. And I think low code hasn't quite gotten there yet. Not that it won't, especially with AI supported development. There's so many benefits. But I do think that there's a huge benefit to tooling in the platform system space. So when cloud was first being defined by larger communities, the National Institutes of Standard and Technology in the US, for example, was starting to define cloud as a thing, and defining infrastructure clouds, platforms, and software as a service as different models for delivering cloud to end customers. Most of the focus ended up on either infrastructure as a service or software as a service. There were a couple of platform players. The Cloud Foundry path was one. Heroku was one that was sort of the progenitor of the platform as a service kind of space. And since then, I think those tools have been around. People have certainly been talking about them. They've certainly been interacting with how they've become valuable, et cetera. But there hasn't been quite as much development there. I think the platform space effectively moved into the no code development space. And the reason that I want to talk about platform today is to get you started to think about platform as a different thing. We've seen DevOps work, and in very small teams, I call it the sort of the pizza team conundrum. Smaller than a pizza team, DevOps makes a lot of sense. Everybody sort of has to be involved with the entire application delivery flow, from development of the application all the way through operations and production. Test gets mapped into that. SecOps validation gets mapped into that. You have to do all the things. As you start getting beyond that one pizza team scale, so beyond 8 to 10 people, maybe even it's two pizza teams, that really start to divide. In other words, two pizzas, 16 pieces of pizza, everybody gets one piece. I like two myself, but hey, that's that's personal preference, I guess. When you get a bigger pizza, but the idea that a small group can really sort of do everything or be involved with everything, even if you start to differentiate almost from the very get go. Somebody focuses on the front end user interface, somebody focuses more on the back end data space, somebody manages the deployment and infrastructure, or heck, manages the business side of things and goes and try to convince customers to go buy something. We already see that differentiation, even if you're doing all the things. And especially in a startup world, yeah, you're doing all the things. But even in startups, any startup I've been involved with that's gotten beyond that first 10 or 12 people, you already start to see the differentiation. You start to see people who focus really more on how do I make sure that it runs? How do I have a consistent interface for making it easier for my developers to come up with ideas of how the application should behave, how customers should interact with it, and not get in the way of trying to figure out how to get that released to customers as rapidly as possible. I think that's where the new platform space, and we start now talking about platform engineers. I think this is a rebranding of the systems reliability engineer in a way, but it's a systems reliability engineer that isn't just taking whatever the developer team has built and trying to keep it operating. Instead, they're now coming and saying, this is the interface. This is the model that I would like you to engage with. And where we really get the best benefit out of that platform concept is when we have that small pizza team grow into this platform and engineering side of things model, where the engineers keep doing what the engineers do. They're building their application, and the SRE platform side of the house starts to say, well, let me give you a better infrastructure to build on top of. So you don't have to worry about whether we're deploying into a virtual machine, a container in Docker, or a container in Kubernetes, right? I'm going to make sure that there's an API interface, and maybe there's a simple API model. So you don't have to describe an ingress controller definition in Kubernetes. You just say, hey, this is the path, and go ahead and implement the ingress behind it, right? I'll give you the path inside of my application that my application expects, and you route to me however you're going to do that, right? If you want to pull it out of ingress controller and put it into an Istio gateway systems model, that's fine. That's beyond what I care about as a developer, as long as the path continues to forward and as long as I'm getting data that I expect to get from that particular forwarding path. So platform is becoming an incredibly powerful tool. I see it as really sort of changing the game for infrastructure operations, for infrastructure within organizations, and even how organizations go to market. A number of the customers that we've had over the years have really found the biggest value in having a defined platform and figuring out how to build and scale that environment. And that's, I think, really the big benefit to a lot of these things, and how we can really see some gains in performance, in reliability, in reduction of cost, improvement of value is another way of thinking of that. So be aware of this concept of platform. And really, that's my thought of the day. Think about platform not as a tool, but rather as a model for how applications are delivered for your particular organization. And consider actually building a team whose job it is to understand how developers want to do that process, and then make it easier for them by automating all the things. Now, this has been Robert Starmer. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell me, leave a comment here, and let me know what you think. If you have comments, we'd love to hear them. Would love to hear what your thoughts are in terms of other topics that you'd love to have us talk about. Again, thanks for at least listening through to this point. Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Bye.